The Pittsburgh Steelers are 10-0 for the first time in franchise history. The success of the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers has mostly been attributed to their defense, which ranks top 5 in most offensive categories and leads the league in sacks and takeaways. But what if I told you that after years of acquiring talent through the draft, the Steelers have the deepest and most dynamic receiving corps in the National Football League? With the help of their future Hall of Fame quarterback, the Steelers have dominated opposing defenses by utilizing their stud receivers on the field at the same time. Yeah! What's up, guys? This is my brand new channel, X and O's TV. I'm Dave, and I love football. I've watched football my whole life, and I've played football my whole life. I always wanted to make a YouTube channel breaking down game footage. So when I finally got this channel up, I was trying to think of ideas for my very first video. Originally, I'm from Pittsburgh, and I'm a huge Steelers fan. So I thought, since the Steelers are so good this year, they're 10-0 right now, why not make my very first video about my favorite team? So what I've really been impressed with the Steelers is how they utilize their 0-1 personnel, or their empty package, right? So most base offenses in the NFL, they run 11 personnel. So that's 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wideouts. The 0-1 personnel, that's 0 running backs, 1 tight end, and 4 wideouts. And for the Steelers, it's guys like Deontay Johnson, Juju, Chase Claypool, Eric Ebron, James Washington. So it's really just been dominant for them, especially the last few weeks. So we're going to be taking a look at that, but before we dive into that film, we have to see what wasn't working for the Steelers. So the first place we're going to look is the first half of the Baltimore Ravens game in Week 8. So this is the first half of the Ravens game. The Steelers were outgained by over 100 yards and can only muster 64 total yards. The Ravens just traded for Yannick Ngakoue, allowing them to rush 4 guys and play coverage on the back end. When the Steelers were in 11 personnel, the Ravens disguised a variety of coverages, the most effective one being cover 1. The Ravens, in my opinion, have the best secondary in the AFC, and they use their big money corners to press and disrupt the timing of Big Ben and his receivers. To make matters worse, the Steelers couldn't run the ball, allowing the Ravens to pin their ears back and pressure Ben, which didn't allow time for the routes to develop. All the Steelers could do on offense was basically chuck the ball downfield and pray for pass interference. The Steelers were going to lose this game if something didn't change. Ben was fooled by the disguises, the O-line wasn't protecting long enough, and the wide receivers could not get open. The first play we'll break down is a cover 1 with a 5-man pressure. The Ravens are disguising their coverage by making it look like their very popular zero blitz. Ben will recognize this and call a max protection to the left, but the blitz is coming from the right side. The play is a simple mesh concept with Deontay Johnson running a 15-yard comeback. The play is doomed from the beginning though because of the free rusher on the right side, leading to a sack fumble on 3rd down, denying the Steelers any points before half. In this play, the Ravens are in a cover 2 defense. It looks like Ben wants to hit Juju on a flat route, but didn't expect Marlon Humphrey to be there. Nobody's open, and Ben has enough time to check it down to James Conner. By this time, though, the cornerback has passed off the wide receiver to the safety. He comes downhill to make a quick stop, leading to a 3rd and long. The last play we'll break down from the first half is another cover 1 from the Ravens, similar to the first play we looked at, but this time only rushing 4 instead of 5. Ben anticipates a quick out to James Washington, but steps into his running back and overthrows it. Another drive stalled. The Steelers went empty one time in the first half. Ben throws a quick slant to Chase Claypool, who wins with speed, size, and physicality at the line, but gets stripped by Marcus Peters after a 12-yard gain. I believe this scared the Steelers off from focusing on these 1v1 matchups, understanding how important the turnover battle would be. But with the Ravens up 10 after half and the Steelers offense killing the team, they decided to take a chance by spreading out Baltimore's defense and utilizing different alignments to exploit matchups against Baltimore's man defense. Bringing another receiver instead of a running back makes Baltimore counter by subbing one of their linebackers for a corner the Steelers feel very good about matching up against, because now it's one of their wide receivers on a cornerback not named Jimmy Smith, Marcus Peters, or Marlon Humphreys. The other advantage for the Steelers was simplifying Baltimore's complex disguises. It was much easier to tell if Baltimore was in man or zone when they were spread out. This allowed Ben to read and anticipate throws, which is when he's at his best. Not only was the Ravens' defense easier to read at the line, but they also were playing more basic coverages. Worried if the play was too complex, this would lead to blown assignments, which still ended up happening a few times, giving up chunk plays and a touchdown. In this play, the Steelers are using their wide receivers in stack alignments, meant to get separation underneath against man coverage. The Ravens are instead in a cover 2, only using a 3-man pass rush with a linebacker dropping in the hook zone to help out over the middle where the cover 2 is weakest. Luckily for the Steelers, the routes on the right are a bench concept, a quick out and a 10-yard flag. Ben pumps, drawing Marcus Peters up, then zips a bullet in to Chase Claypool for a touchdown. This next one is a product of good pass protection. The Ravens are in a cover 3 and a rushing 4. Ben wants to go underneath to Deontay, but the linebacker steps up to cover him, abandoning his zone and allowing Juju to get over top with a crossing route because of the line's ability to give Ben all day. This is the other benefit of going empty against zone coverage. 4 rushers against 5 blockers and way too many wide receivers on the field to keep track of for over 4 seconds. This is week 9 when the Steelers traveled to Dallas. The Steelers were favored by 2 touchdowns, and everyone knows the Steelers historically like to make every game against every opponent down to the wire. But after watching the film, there is definitely more to the story than the Steelers play down the competition. I believe the Steelers thought they would roll the Cowboys, and I can tell that early on with the scripted plays they called. The Cowboys had the worst ranked run defense at this time, so I don't blame the Steelers for making that their focal point, but the Steelers are a pass-first, run-second team. That's their identity, from the quarterback all the way to the offensive line. In the first half, the Steelers' offensive line was bullied at the point of attack, and the Steelers found themselves in 3rd and longs far too often to help them convert with their short passing game. Again, the Steelers find themselves trailing at halftime, and again the Steelers use their 0-1 personnel to exploit the below-average secondary of the Dallas Cowboys. Not only were the Steelers playing to their best matchups at this point, but the Cowboys' secondary seemed lost at times with multiple coverage busts. In Dallas' defense, their secondary was pretty beat up by injuries, and my hat goes off to them because they came in with a great game plan on both sides of the ball. The Steelers were outcoached in this one, but won because of pure talent and a little help from penalties. The first play we'll look at is a touchdown from the end of the second quarter. The Cowboys are running a cover 3 against the Steelers' empty set. There's a slot fade to Juju on the left and a sluggo flat route on the right. I think Ben knew where he was going to throw this as soon as he got to the line. James Washington sells the slant perfectly, then breaks vertically. The DB jumps thanks to a beautiful pump from Ben, and then Ben lays it up to a wide open James Washington for the Steelers' first and much needed score of the game. This play is another double move for a touchdown. The Cowboys are in a cover 4 this time with a 4-man pass rush. The Steelers use another slot fade on the left, but this time they have 2 double moves on the right. Another sluggo with a button route underneath, but Juju is running a corner post move against the safety in a quarter zone. Ben uses another little pump to turn the safety's hips inside while Juju breaks inside on the post. The safety isn't even looking at this point, and now it's too late. Juju turns and powers his way through the end zone for another touchdown. The last play from the Dallas game I'll break down is another cover 4 from the Cowboys. They chose to stick to mostly zone coverage against the Steelers 0-1 because of personnel issues. They do try to disguise it this time by moving the safety down in the box, but either way, Ben was going to Deontay on the out route regardless if it was a cover 4 or a cover 3. The corners backed off about 5 yards, and after Deontay makes the catch, all he has to do is make the tackle, but DJ is too agile and turns a 10-yard gain into a 40-yarder. In Week 10 against the Bengals, the Steelers ended up winning pretty big, so they didn't really have to use their 0-1 set nearly as much. They had plenty of success against the Bengals and their 11 personnel. Also, I thought the Bengals did a pretty decent job against the Steelers 0-1. Not great, but respectable. The Bengals mixed up the amount of pass rushers they sent every play instead of just sitting in one basic defense. They still had some blown coverages here and there, but for playing with a bunch of backups, I was impressed how they held up against the Steelers when they went empty. All in all, though, the Steelers were still too much for this Bengals defense, especially near the red zone, where the Steelers had the most success with their package. This is an example of the Bengals being different than the last 2 teams against empty. This here is just basically a zero blitz, but the corners and safeties are going to drop in the zone and guard the end zone. Ben somehow avoids a sack and zips one to Juju in the back of the end zone. This is another play out of empty in the red zone. This is actually the first touchdown of the game, and the Bengals are in a cover 3, and the Steelers have slant flat combos on each side. Remember when I told you that Ben is best when he's anticipating? This is what I mean, as he throws a dart to Deontay before he's even out his break. Just like the Bengals game against the Jaguars, the Steelers didn't really need to use their 0-1 personnel that much, as the Steelers ended up winning 27-3. I imagine against better teams though, the Steelers will use it the majority of the time, especially if they're trailing. Now, it's not good to be one-dimensional, of course, but I just don't think teams have the secondaries to stop it consistently. Against the Jags, their secondary was far worse than the last 3 teams, mostly because of injuries. The Steelers went empty to use their short passing game to methodically move down the field on this banged-up Jags secondary. Another thing I noticed is how many pass interferences the wide receivers attract in this formation. It seemed like every time Claypool went deep, he was getting dragged down, and the Steelers' offense would get a huge chunk of yards in return. Okay, so the only play I'm going to break down in this game is Claypool's touchdown. The Jags are in cover 3, the Steelers have a slant flat on the left, which I believe was Ben's first read. Once he saw the safety in the middle of the field though, he threw it up to Chase, who did a great job of getting outside and stacking the cornerback over top. He makes a great catch and avoids any collision. Perfect. In the past 4 weeks, when the Pittsburgh Steelers have lined up in their 0-1 personnel, Big Ben is 46 for 67, 522 yards with 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Pittsburgh already has the elite Super Bowl defense. The question of the team's success was always about whether or not the offense could keep up with the other high-powered offenses in the league. So far, no team has been able to stop the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think until defenses can figure out how to slow down Big Ben and his bevy of young and uber-talented wide receivers, the Pittsburgh Steelers should be considered the best and most well-rounded team in the NFL. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to try to do a new video like this every week. If that's something you want to see, like and subscribe, and I'd really appreciate any feedback since I'm new to this, so whether you liked it or you hated it, let me know in the comments below. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.